Well, doctor, when you talk about replacing hormones, let's talk about the difference between synthetic and bioidentical.
Yes. Well, in the history of treating women in menopause, and it goes way, way back, but I'm just going to pick up on the last 50, 60
Hmm.
years. Doctors realized that the women were having a rough time, and they knew it was from hormonal insufficiency, and they were reaching out to see how can we get hormones for these women? And the best that they came up with initially was, well, we're going to need we're going to have to find some source of it, and they're going to have to be able to produce quite a lot of it. And what did they choose? Pregnant horses.
Horses.
And they catheterized these horses in stalls and collected their urine, and because the hormones are being put out in the horse's urine. And that was the beginning. And that was taking place on a large enough scale that they could actually manufacture pills. And that was one of the
Hmm.
initial approaches. And, I was having dinner with a pharmacist friend of mine many, many years ago, and he said, have you ever bit into a capsule of, into a tablet of Premarin? And I went, well, no. I've never seen one, actually. He was a pharmacist. He said, well, I did once. And did you ever wonder why the capsule was so thick on that? And I said, why the coating was so thick? And I said, no. And he said, because when you bite into it, you smell horse urine, you smell urine, because it's still there. Now, I don't want to diminish this. There's millions of women who benefited and are grateful for and look back with gratitude that there was some hormones
Hmm.
available. And there was a lot of mistakes made and a lot of overdosing going on, but a lot of women did very, very well. And as often is the case, the vulnerable ones, the sensitive ones, a certain percentage of them didn't do so well.
Hmm.
But, you know, it was the best we had at the time, and it's always that way. I mean, when anyone begins something, we're not doing our very best.
Sure.
When I was a new graduate at 29 from medical school, I wasn't knowledgeable or
Hmm.
experienced, and neither was the whole field of menopause. So, but things have come a long, long way. And pharmaceutical manufacturers started realizing for the birth control pills that they wanted to do a new approach. And so they realized that the whole plant world has the same hormones in it than we do. We're like plants
Hmm.
in a way. And some plants have more than others. And the soybean, for example, or the yams, they have a lot of pure estrogen, progesterone,
Hmm.
testosterone, DHEA in there. And it's the exact same molecule that's in our body. Now they started extracting those they started purchasing soy fields and extracting these hormones from the soybeans. And interestingly enough, they chose to change the molecule. For example, estradiol, they chose to link it up with a fraction called ethinyl, and that made the molecule different enough that they could patent it. And that's very important to pharmaceutical manufacturers because if you can't patent it,
Hmm.
your idea can be stolen. So they altered the molecule. But the interesting thing is the compounding pharmacists, these pharmacists who are sort of old school in a certain way, they like to mix things and gather and make up potions like pharmacists used to do. They realized that these pharmaceutical manufacturers had pure bioidentical estrogen, progesterone, et cetera, and they purchased these in the pure form and put it up in capsules and creams and gels. And that's when bioidentical began. They are biologically identical. They're the same molecule. Now, when given the choice between the same molecule or horse urine estrogen is very, very different. 30%
Hmm.
of those has a equilin in it, and it's a molecule that the human female has never seen.
Sure.
And so, when given a choice between horse urine derived estrogens and
Hmm.
this exact same molecule, duh. I mean,
Yeah.
but that's a problem for the pharmaceutical manufacturers because they couldn't patent it.
Hmm.
So they didn't go into that until recently, until 2002, when a medical study blew up on them. They were trying to prove that it was that Premarin and Prempro were really the best out there, and they wound up seeing increased incidences of breast cancer and cardiovascular disease, and the whole menopause world had an earthquake go through it. And from that point on, they changed their minds, and they got on the bandwagon of bioidenticals, but there's mistakes that they're making, and, I mean, from my vantage point.